The Armstrong Whitworth A.W.41 Albemarle was a British twin-engine transport aircraft that entered service during the Second World War. The Albemarle was originally designed as a medium bomber, but never served in that role, instead being used for general and special transport duties, paratroop transport and glider towing, including significant actions such as Normandy and the assault on Arnhem during Operation Market Garden. Background: Air Ministry Specification B. 938 required a twin-engine medium bomber of wood-and-metal construction that could be built by manufacturers outside the aircraft industry, and without using light alloys. The Air Ministry was concerned that if there was a war, the restricted supply of materials might affect construction of bombers. Armstrong Whitworth, Bristol and de Havilland were approached for designs. Bristol proposed two designs: a conventional 80-feet wingspan capable of 300 miles per hour, and a tricycle design with 70 feet span with a maximum speed of 320 miles per hour. Both designs, known as the Type 155, used two Bristol Hercules engines. Armstrong Whitworth's A.W.41 design used a tricycle undercarriage and was built up of subsections to ease manufacture by firms without aircraft construction experience. The A.W.41 was designed with Rolls-Royce Merlin engines in mind, but with Bristol Hercules as an alternative engine. In June 1938, mock-ups of both the A.W.41 and Bristol 155 were examined, and new specifications B 1738 and B 1838 were drawn up for the respective designs. De Havilland did not submit a design. The specification stipulated 250 miles per hour at 15,000 feet economical cruise while carrying 4,000 pounds of bombs. However, Bristol was already heavily engaged with other aircraft production and development and stopped work on the 155. Changes in policy made the air staff reconsider the Albemarle as principally a reconnaissance aircraft capable of carrying out bombing. Among other effects, this meant more fuel to give a 4,000-mile range. Two defensive positions were added, an upper dorsal turret and a ventral turret to enable downward firing. In October 1938, 200 aircraft were ordered off the drawing board. The aircraft was always expected to be of use as a contingency, and to be less than ideal. Design and development: the Albemarle was a mid-wing, cantilever monoplane with twin fins and rudders. The fuselage was built in three sections, the structure being unstressed plywood over a steel tube frame. The forward section used stainless steel tubing to reduce interference with magnetic compasses. It had a Lockheed hydraulically operated, retractable tricycle landing gear, with the main wheels retracting back into the engine nacelles, and the nose wheel retracting backwards into the front fuselage. The two pilots side by side, a radio operator sat behind the pilots, and the navigator sat in the nose forward of the cockpit. The bomb aimer sighting panel was incorporated into the crew hatch in the underside of the nose. In the rear fuselage were glazed panels, so a fire controller could coordinate the turrets against attackers. The dorsal turret was a bolt-and-pawl design with 4 Browning machine guns. A fairing forward of the turret automatically retracted as the turret rotated to fire forwards. Fuel was in 4 tanks, and additional tanks could be carried in the bomb bay. A notable design feature of the Albemarle was its undercarriage, which included a retractable nose wheel. It was the first British-built aircraft with this configuration to enter service with the Royal Air Force. The original bomber design required a crew of 6, including 2 gunners, one in a 4-gun dorsal turret and one in a twin-gun ventral turret. However, only the first 32 aircraft, the MKI Series 1, were produced in this configuration, and they were only used operationally in the bomber role on 2 occasions. That was because the Albemarle was considered inferior to other aircraft already in service, such as the Vickers Wellington. All subsequent aircraft were built as transports, designated either General Transport or Special Transport. When used as a paratroop transport, 10 fully armed troops could be carried. The paratroopers were provided with a dropping hatch in the rear fuselage, and a large loading door in the fuselage side. The entire production run of 600 Albemarles was assembled by A.W. Hawksley Limited of Gloucester, a subsidiary of the Gloucester Aircraft Company formed for the purpose of the construction of the Albemarle. Gloucester was a part of the Hawker Siddeley Group, which included Armstrong Whitworth. Individual parts and sub-assemblies for the Albemarle were produced by about 1,000 subcontractors. Operational history. The first Albemarle first flew on the 20th of March 1940 at Hamble Aerodrome, where it was assembled by Air Service Training, and was the first of 2 prototypes built by Armstrong Whitworth. To improve takeoff, a wider span wing was fitted after the 8th aircraft. Plans for using it as a bomber were dropped due to delays in reaching service. It was not an improvement over current medium bombers, and it had obvious shortcomings compared to the 4-engined heavy bombers about to enter service, but it was considered suitable for general reconnaissance. The Soviet Air Force placed a contract for delivery of 200 Albemarles in October 1942. A RAF unit was set up to train Soviet ferry crews. Number 305 FDU at RAF Errol near Dundee. During training, 1 aircraft was lost with no survivors. The first RAF squadron to operate the Albemarle was No. 295 at RAF Harwell in January 1943. Other squadrons to be equipped with the Albemarle were No. 296, number 297 and number 570. Other RAF squadrons operated small numbers of the aircraft. On the 9th of February 1943, the first operational flight was a 296 Squadron Albemarle, which dropped leaflets over Lisieux in Normandy. A Soviet crewed Albemarle flew from Scotland to Vnukovo Airfield, near Moscow on the 3rd of March 1943. It was followed soon afterwards by 11 more aircraft. 2 Albemarles were lost over the North Sea, 1 to German interceptors, and the other 2 unknown causes. Tests of the surviving Albemarles revealed the weaknesses as transports and numerous technical flaws. In May 1943, the Soviet government put further deliveries on hold, and eventually cancelled them in favor of abundant American Douglas C-47 Skytrains. At least 2 of the Albemarles that reached the USSR were lost in accidents, and the surviving aircraft were retired 2 years later. For mid-1943, RAF Albemarles took part in many of the major British airborne operations, beginning with the invasion of Sicily. The pinnacle of the aircraft's career was a series of operations for D-Day. On the night of 5/6 June 1944, 295 and 296 squadrons sent aircraft to Normandy with the Pathfinder force, and 295 Squadron claimed to be the first squadron to drop Allied airborne troops over Normandy. On the 6th of June 1944, 4 Albemarle squadrons and the Operational Training Unit all sent aircraft during Operation Tonga. 296 Squadron used 19 aircraft to tow Espy horses. 295 Squadron towed 21 horses, although it lost 6 in transit. 570 Squadron sent 22 aircraft with 10 towing gliders, and 42 O2 used 4 aircraft. For Operation Mallard on 7 June 1944, the squadrons towed 220 horses and 30 Hamel cars to Normandy. On 17 September 1944, during Operation Market Garden at Arnhem, 54 horses and 2 Waco Hadrian gliders were towed to the Netherlands by 28 Albemarles of 296 and 297 squadrons. 45 aircraft were sent the following date towing gliders. Of the 602 aircraft delivered, 17 were lost on operations, and 81 lost in accidents. The last Royal Air Force unit to operate the type was the Heavy Glider Conversion Unit, which replaced the Albemarles with Handley Page Halifaxes in February 1946, and the type was retired from operational units. Variants. Over the course of its production life, a number of variants of the Albemarle were built: Saint Mki-99 aircraft, GT Mki-69, Saint Mk-299, Mk-3, one prototype only, Mki-V, one prototype only, Saint Mk-V-49, Saint Mk-Vi-133, GT Mk-Vi-117. Most marks were divided into series to distinguish differences in equipment. The St. Mki Series 1 had the 4-gun turret replaced with hand-operated twin guns under a sliding hood. As a special transport, a loading door was fitted on the starboard side. The rear fuel tank was removed. The 14 St. Mki Series 2 aircraft were equipped with gear for towing gliders. The Mk2 could carry 10 paratroops and the Mk-V was essentially the same but with a fuel jettison capability. All production Albemarles were powered by a pair of 1,590 horsepower Bristol Hercules She radial engines. The Mk3 and Mki-V Albemarles were development projects for testing different power plants. The former used the Rolls-Royce Merlin III, and the latter used the 1,600 horsepower Wright double cyclone. Operators. Soviet Union 12 aircraft were exported to the Soviet Union. Transport arm of 1st Air Division, later 10th Guards Air Division, Naval Air Units until retirement in 1945. United Kingdom Royal Air Force No. 161 Squadron RAF Albemarle from October 1942 to April 1943 at RAF Tempsford. No. 271 Squadron RAF operated one aircraft at Doncaster between October 1942 and April 1943. No. 295 Squadron RAF Albemarle from November 1943 to July 1944 at RAF Herne and then RAF Harwell. Albemarle 2 from October 1943 to July 1944 at RAF Herne and then RAF Harwell. Albemarle V from April 1944 to July 1944 at RAF Harwell. No. 296 Squadron RAF Albemarle from January 1943 to October 1944 at RAF Herne, RAF Stony Cross including operations in North Africa. Albemarle 2 from November 1943 to October 1944 at RAF Herne and then RAF Brize Norton. Albemarle V from April 1944 to October 1944 at RAF Brize Norton. Albemarle Vi from August 1944 to October 1944 at RAF Brize Norton. No. 297 Squadron RAF Albemarle from July 1943 to December 1944 at RAF Thruxton, RAF Stony Cross and then RAF Brize Norton. Albemarle 2 from February 1943 to December 1944 at RAF Stony Cross and then RAF Brize Norton. Albemarle V from April 1944 to December 1944 at RAF Brize Norton. Albemarle V from July 1944 to December 1944 at RAF Bryce Norton, No. 511 Squadron RAF. Albemarle I from November 1942 to March 1944 at RAF Lionham, No. 570 Squadron RAF. Albemarle I from November 1943 to August 1944 at RAF Herne and then RAF Harwell. Albemarle II from November 1943 to August 1944 at RAF Herne and then RAF Harwell. Albemarle V from May 1944 to August 1944 at RAF Harwell. No 1404 flight RAF used 3 aircraft at RAF St. Eval from September 1942 to March 1943. No 1406 flight RAF used 2 aircraft at RAF Wick from September to October 1942. Number 13 Operational Training Unit RAF at RAF Finmere. Number 42 Operational Training Unit RAF at RAF Ashbourne from September 1943 to February 1945. Heavy Glider Conversion Unit at RAF Bryce Norton and RAF North Luffenham from January to April 1943 and August 1944 to October 1944 when it became Number 21 Heavy Glider Conversion Unit. No. 21 Heavy Glider Conversion Unit at RAF Bryce Norton from 1944. Moved to RAF Aylsham Worlds in December 1945 and withdrew the last operational Albemarles in February 1946. Number 22 Heavy Glider Conversion Unit at RAF Kieval and RAF Blakehill from October 1944 to November 1945. Number 23 Heavy Glider Conversion Unit at RAF Peploe from October to December 1944. Number 3 Glider Training School operated 8 Albemarles at RAF Exeter between January and August 1945. Number 301 Ferry Training Unit operated 4 Albemarles at RAF Lynham from November 1942 to April 1943. Number 305 Ferry Training Unit bases at RAF Errol from January 1943 to train Soviet Air Force crews, disbanded in April 1944. Torpedo Development Unit at Gosport used 1 aircraft between April and September 1942. Telecommunications Flying Unit at RAF Defford used 1 aircraft during May 1943. Airborne Forces Experimental Establishment at RAF Ringway and RAF Sherburne in Elmwood between May 1942 and October 1944. Coastal Command Development Unit used 2 aircraft at RAF Tain between September and December 1942. Central Gunnery School at RAF Sutton Bridge used 1 aircraft between September and November 1942. Bomber Development Unit used 3 aircraft at RAF Gransden Lodge between August and November 1942. Operation Refresher Training Unit at RAF Hampstead Norris from May 1944 to February 1945. Aircraft were also operated for tests and trials by aircraft companies, the Royal Aircraft Establishment, and Aeroplane and Armament Experimental Establishment. One was operated by de Havilland Propellers for research into reversing propellers. Specifications. Data from the unloved Albemarle. General characteristics. Crew 4. Capacity 10 paratroopers in St. Payload 4,000 pounds freight. Length 59 feet 11 in. Wingspan 77 feet 0 in. Height 15 feet 7 in. Wing area 804 feet squared. Empty weight 25,347 pounds. Loaded weight 36,500 pounds. Max takeoff weight 36,500 pounds. Power plant 2 times Bristol Hercules She radial engine 1,590 horsepower each. Propellers de Havilland Hydromatic propeller. Performance maximum speed, 230 knots at 10,500 feet. Cruise speed, 148 knots. Stall speed, 61 knots. Range, 1,300 miles. Service ceiling, 18,000 feet. Rate of climb, 980 feet per minute. Armament guns, 4 times. 303 in Browning machine guns in dorsal turret, 2 times. 303 in machine guns in ventral turret. Bombs, internal bomb bay for 4,500 pounds of bombs.